Hello, and welcome to another edition of Edvectus Recruitment Shorts, where I take a brief moment in time to talk about some aspect of international school job finding. Today we're going to talk about interviewing and acing the interview, and I'll give you my top tips. Tip number 1 is people like people who like them. What does that mean? It means you need to research your school, you need to research the area, and you need to research the curriculum of the school that you're interviewing with. Do be prepared to answer why you want to work at that school, why you want to work in a region, what is it in particular about that school made you apply in the first place. And you need to have specifics when you answer this, because the last thing you want to say is that you're going there for the money or you want it to be in that particular location. It's almost akin to going out on a date with someone and telling them that you're only dating them because of who their father is or how much money they make. It's really a bad look. So do research the school website, think about things that you like, and be prepared to bring those out. Do write down the names of your interviewers when you are introduced to them. Most likely you're going to be doing this by video, and you can have a moment to just quickly scribble down the names of the interviewers and then refer to them by name. It makes a big impression. It's an old sales tool, and you'll notice some telemarketers and salespeople doing it to you. It works, right? You feel heard, you feel acknowledged, and it's a great tip. Okay, when you are talking about the school's curriculum or the school itself, think about drawing parallels to your own experience where you can. Okay, tip number 2 is use examples to prove a point. So when you're interviewing with an international school, you are most likely in a video or even in an interview room in person. You're not in a classroom, and they won't have the ability to watch you teach. And so you need to make yourself come alive as a teacher, and the best way to do that is to use examples. So for instance, if they ask, I don't know, how do you manage your classroom? You could just say, oh, I'm firm but fair, and I have classroom rules. And it's hard for the interviewer to actually picture that in their mind. It's so vague in general. You could say, I'm firm but fair, and I have classroom rules. For example, on my classroom wall in the beginning of the year, I go through 3 rules, and here's what they are, and this is why I've chosen them. Here's how I enforce them. Here's where I use positive rewards, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can kind of get a feeling, my first answer was very vague, and you probably couldn't even think about me doing something in the classroom. The second answer gives you a context, and it also gives you authenticity. It makes it clear that you know what you're doing, right? Because you're actually saying what you do and giving real life examples. One nice thing if you're doing a video interview is you can have a little note card next to you, and you can have already thought about things that you can use as examples. So for instance, lessons that went particularly well, you can just put a little bullet so you can remember that one. Lessons that didn't go well, and importantly, what you learned from it. So don't read your card. We've had people do that, and boy, does that go over badly. It's one thing to be prepared, it's another thing to read. So that's why I like bullet points, because you can't really read a bullet point. You can just quickly look at it, and it'll raise that example in your mind. Okay, number 3, schools are looking for reflective practitioners. And so you always have to be thinking about what you learned. You can talk about an example of things that went badly, but most importantly, you need to talk about what you learned from it. Never badmouth a previous employer, never badmouth a person that you worked with. Even if they deserve it, you could do it to your friends. Don't do it to your interviewers. They're going to be wondering what bad things you'll be saying about them next time, even if they're the best school in the world. It's just a bad look. Never diss previous employers. Always talk about if something didn't go well. It's more important to talk about what you learned from it. So if a job ended unexpectedly, this is what happened, and this is what I learned. This is what I would do differently next time. That goes over very well. Finally, 3 things you need to be prepared to be asked about. Number one is child safeguarding. You will most likely be given scenarios and you'll need to talk about how you would handle it. So safeguarding, the better the school, the more they care about safeguarding. And so you might be asked, well, if you had a child come in with a bruise on his face, what would you do? Or what would you do if a child disclosed to you that someone had been acting inappropriately? So you need to be prepared for these kinds of questions because they will come up. You need to be prepared to talk about academic attainment, your students' academic attainment. International schools are generally academic. Most of them are fee paying, and the parents are looking for attainment. So think about your previous jobs where you've increased academic attainment and be prepared to speak about them. If you can use numbers, if you can use figures, that's great. Add it to your bullet point. Finally, the schools are going to be looking for what you added to the wider school community. This means above and beyond just teaching and marking papers. How did you get involved in the community? How do you interact with parents? How do you get along with other colleagues? They're going to be looking at you in the wider context, so be prepared for that. And that is my Edvectus shorts on interviews.